first lesson for violin virtuosity coming up in a couple months. Carnegie Hall, 3 months. Anyway, here's the book we're going to use. This is the one that is pretty much standard. There's lots of them now, and Suzuki and everything, but this gives you the technical background of learning the basics, and then from that point on, you play. But just to tell you, the violin bow is this, and this tightens it up, and you tighten it up until it stays straight, but the hair is away from the wood. Some of these things cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, like a Tort is one of the very famous bow makers from 1600. Anyway, you see the man here? Here he is, he's holding the bow. Put your bow up like this. Fingers go around here. This finger goes there. This finger goes here. Yeah, that's the way it feels comfortable for me. Figure it any way you want. You might, this is no good, but basically if you take it this way, you're going to be able to move loosely because your hand moves back and forth. And like the picture, well, like I'm doing what the picture says. When you take the bow down, you gotta go down and then out instead of swinging around. So you're gonna take the bow, hold it here, and go out, straight out. If I were playing the violin, I'd be playing like this. Then I come down, and instead of coming around, go out. That'll keep the bow straight on the strings, because you have to have the bow onto the strings to make a good tone. The bow is half, or even a little bit more than half important for playing the violin, because this is what makes the tone. You can get fancy with this left hand and play all these things in the world, but unless you have a good bow, the bow should be pretty much flat on the strings instead of way to the side. As you learn, you'll have twists a little bit, because that way you're using less hair, you're going to get less tone. Also, when you're playing the violin, if you come close to the bridge, which we'll talk about in a minute or two, and stay there, that's going to give you a louder tone than going closer to the fingerboard. So all these things you can put in your file for later on, because we're not going to do anything for a while we're listening to you sounding terrible. So you take the violin and just play. You got 4 strings, your arm's going to go up where it's comfortable. Just everything's comfortable. Your shoulders got to be comfortable, otherwise you're tightening up someplace. So the best thing to do is think yoga. Wow, got this? Go across the G string on the bottom, and then the D string, go all the way up and all the way down. You see how my hand went out again? If the bow had been on the string, it would have been out, it wouldn't have been swinging around. So you'll see like this, go. So you go to G, it's going to sound terrible, because you're going to be back whacking, waving, because this bow is going to be going all over. So this hand holding the violin is, that the bow is very important. Then try your D string, and then your A string, and then your E string. And if you have trouble holding your bow arm up all the time, put a book under your arm until you get used to having it down there. See how it still goes this way, not this way. This is an unnatural feel, but you've got to go this way to be able to control good bow length, and that way it will sound very good. As for holding the violin, you just grab it and put it next to your chin. Most people, in holding, sorry I'm such a mess here. Anyway, you just put the violin, you got the chin rest, and you're going to be putting in a shoulder pad. This thing is going to take up the space between your neck and the shoulder, so you don't have the violin flipping back and forth. Like, see how it is? This is set for Jill, so it's not setting for me. But you want this, and you do not grab the violin to hold it. The chin on the side holds the violin, and you have enough space under here to keep it up so you don't have to do this. You should be standing just natural like this, like the picture. See the man here? Same thing. He's got the thing up there. He's got the thing down here. You'll see it on the book better. I don't know how good this camera is going to come out, but it should be good. So you're going to set this up so it's natural. And that's going to be your first lesson. Play your G's, your D's, your A's, your E's. All this back and forth, and keep it going until it sounds good. And keep this free. It's very normal to grab it. You can't grab it because if you're going to go up this, that means you would have to loosen it to come up and then grab it again. This is a waste of time. And you'd lose maybe a millionth of a second. So if you want to play all these things like this right away, you see it's just sliding back and forth. So this is it. This little first lesson is the most important in getting to play the violin and be comfortable with it. And it's the most important lesson to produce tone. Just those 4 tones. If you want to put your fingers down or fool around, you can do whatever you want. But there's a method for playing this, and we're going to go through all the technical parts so you know it. And because then you can make deviations or changes from that point on. So the best thing to do is have fun with the violin. If you want to play other notes and just hit down whatever it is here, that's fine. Do whatever you want. But try the G's, the D's, the A's, and E's. You see your arm is going to be like this. G, D, A, E. Right? And that's pretty much your very first lesson on learning how to play the violin. The violin itself, see this one here, see that bridge? This is called the bridge. It's sitting slightly forward. And where you set that is underneath, you're looking, there's a sound post. You can't see it on the camera probably, but you'll see that sound post, and this bridge will sit directly on top of it. And the only way you can get this sound post underneath straight up, and that goes between these 2 holes. See these 2 F-hole little marks here? Mm-hmm. The sound post underneath will be between those, and this will be on top of that. The only way you can get that in and out of here is tie a string on both sides of it. So you drop it in there, and then you have to fool around and swear a couple times and try to get it setting up, and it's going to take a lot of time. Once it's set, it's going to stay there. Probably if you get a violin, it'll be already set in there, so you won't have to fool with it. This little piece here is the tail piece, which obviously makes sense. And on this particular one, she has adjustments. Very few violinists use any of the adjustments except the top E, because this is such a thin little string. As you go up in tone, the strings get thinner. Just take a look at how thick this one is. And don't touch in here, because this will put finger oil on there, which will make your bow slip. And in this particular fiddle, you see there's some rosin on it. When you get done playing, just take a cloth and wipe the thing off, because you don't want it to get damp, because after a couple of years you're going to have a big mess of goop there. So basically keep your fiddle comfortable, and that's about it. On this end, these strings, there's not too much I can tell you, except this one seems to be wound pretty good. Notice that when she wound up this G string, she wound it so the string is very close to the edge here, finishes. And when you go into the D, that's going to be in the middle of the space. Then the A is the rest of the space, and then the E is off. So these strings will be sort of in line up, and then all are in an order. So that way it's easy to do. That's about it. As you pull them up and down, they should go pretty easy. And if not, on this particular violin, the correct thing would be, see on this side, see on this one, these pegs are not the right pegs, or should be changed or sanded down. They should come through the other side. See here? Because they're just touching it there. They should come out like a 1/16 or 1/4 of an inch. I don't know, you want me to put this more in the light someplace?
I can move with this. There, so they're not all
See
the way
the space in it? Yeah. They should at least, now that one is pretty good. I would have, on my Genie that I had, they came out maybe 1/8 of an inch. No, maybe 1/16 of an inch. But anyway, you have to make use. You can just see that it's not coming all the way through. So that's pretty much your violin, and your first lesson of the tone is entirely that. On sitting down playing it, if you're going to grab something to hold, grab here. And you're going to have your hands play like this, whichever way they go, up and down. They go, the further around you come, the more your hand finger is going to go straight up and down. straight up and down. If you have your hand like this, you see what you gotta do? You gotta move your hand up to play this one every time. So if you have to come up every time, just think that millionth of a second is gone. So you're not gonna be able to get up in here and really rapid playing. So once you put the violin up, and I'll show you sloppy. This is sloppy, see? Holding it, my hand out here. Just think, how long is it gonna take that finger to get over here and play that note? So you have to come up, you have to come around, and you have to hit it. Whereas if your hand were there, they're already there, you just be pushing down. See, I have to hold it here because I can't hold this violin to show you better because this chin rest is not good for me. So that's it, so this is it. Then anytime when you want to come back here, then you just move your hand back this way a little bit, see that? So that puts you into the best rapid position for playing this. And you'll learn all the different types of things. There's nothing to tell you about the fingering except as you go through the course, you use exactly what they say here. Because this is just like taking multiplication, 2 by 2 is 4. That's a standard thing that's been lasting for years and it's been established. Certain things do well on the violin and everybody uses it, just like going through school and learning everything else. So if you deviate from it, you're never going to be a great violinist. That's about it. The more you practice and listen. So when you play and you're playing that G string 50 times, listen to it. Listen to a full bow. Try it yourself. Is the horsehair on the bow straight on? Because just see what happens as you move it around. Experiment. Remember, it's the tone that counts. Same way with tone every place else. You go to an opera, what do you listen to? You don't listen to the words, you listen to the tone. Because who speaks Italian or Russian anyway, except a few dyes in the wool. But that's pretty much it. Do you have any lessons or any questions about this? Here's your chin rest, your shoulder pad, your different things. If you go out to buy a violin, you can buy a violin for absolutely as cheap as possible. As long as, if you're going to a private party to buy it, have them play it a little bit for you and show them how great you are. Or how great they are. But then they probably get a violin that's already pretty much set up for a beginner. It doesn't make any difference. Buy the cheapest one you can that sounds good. And again, it sounds good because you listen to somebody play those couple tones. Listening to the performers trying to sell you a violin doesn't make any difference how great he sounds. It's how good the violin is for you. And I wouldn't spend a lot of money for now. Maybe later on you can go for something that's a better violin, but by that time you'll be able to hear it yourself. You'll be able to go say, look at this violin, this is nice. I like this one, I like that one. I had an opportunity when I was working in Wurlitzer in New York City. They had a Wurlitzer, Rembrandt Wurlitzer, and he was the place everybody from around the world came to for all violins. And I had played a couple of the violins there, the very well known ones, the Amatis, the Guarnerius, the Stradivarius, and I was sort of impressed. The one thing that happens with this is that now in this year they're commanding tremendous prices for these things, and most of them are accounted for. But if you want to read something about the history of those, go to Amati or the Maggini, which is the one I had, and they're the very old beginner of the history when they first came making this shape. And that was pretty much it. An interesting story about Stradivarius and Guarnerius. The Stradivarius was supposed to be the angel, the wonderful big tone of all violin players. Then there was the Guarnerius, and that was for the devil, because at that time there was a guy named Paganini, and he was from what they all say, he was a tall figure like Abraham Lincoln, and always in the dark. Remember, this was back in the late 17 and 1800s that this was starting to flourish, and he was sort of like the devil. So it was, the Guarnerius is always the devil's violin. At least that's all the nonsense that I found out while I was listening to all the BS along the way. And that's it with that. And with that, Jill, I think that maybe we can go ahead with doing whatever you want to do with taking a lesson for yourself. Other than, this is the book, the Wolf Art. And it tells you right here from the very beginning, here's those 4 strings, G, D, A, E. So those are the ones that you're playing when you play those tones. And if you put your hand down, you want to play around with it, start down here. This is, oh no, let's start here in the, whichever one it is. You see, they just take your 5 finger, or your 4 fingers and go up on each tone. So here's G, open. D, is that a D? I can't really read it, whatever notes they are. Music is written on these lines. They're 5 lines, and what they used to say, FACE is the spaces, and every good boy does fine is the are the lines. And this little squiggly thing here, that's a G clef. And the reason is, over time it was established because that circles a G, and that establishes what mode and what key you're in. Not right key, but well, they make this for, this is a standard for piano and violin. When you go into other instruments, this will have a different nomenclature, and it will circle different keys, which doesn't make any difference except for me telling you, and now you know it. So here's your first lesson. This one big thing. And what this is now, this is a no time. You see out here, there's no numbers. There will be a 4/4 usually, 3/4, and what that denotes is the mechanical timing of each of these little measures. So in this particular thing, it has one big hole. A whole pie, that takes 4. So let's say this had a 4 on it. I don't know if the next page does that or not.
I don't think it comes up for a while.
Well, it doesn't make a difference. If it has a 4 on it, you'll count 1, 2, 3, 4. Now on this next one, I can't really see it. Anyway, this is that whole pie cut in half. See that? So now that's a 1, 2. So when a measure that says 4, 4, you'll say 1, 2, 3, 4. And this one here, see, now they colored it in. They colored in this half note. So this is a 1 note. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4. And what is this? Well, this here, this is getting down even further. But here they are down here, just what I explained to you. Is that the one? Yeah, here's the whole note, una, something, 1 note. Here's 2 half notes. Now here's the 1, 2, 3, 4. So now as this cuts down, these cut in half. So that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. See how that's going to go? Mm-hmm. So now here, this is even cut in half. So now it gets going faster and faster and faster. I don't want to get in here because we're starting to confuse you. It's better to go ahead. But this is the basic music that you're going to be playing. And with this, it is very imperative to count out loud while you're doing it. And that establishes a beat. So you've got to start getting a beat instead of saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2. You're going to establish that rhythm just like you're playing a drum. It's very, very important because that's going to set up all music as to how it goes. Plus it counts because then if you get 5 people together playing something and they're all playing one measure in here, and one guy just plays 2 on this and it's really 4 on this, you're not going to be together. As for going also into the orchestra. So that is pretty much there. And let's turn a little bit further.
Can we do one more thing?
Yeah.
Can I see the wrist motion that you make when you bow? That had a lot of effect in me when you first showed me. The way you curve the wrist, how it's almost like lilting. It's kind of a.
Okay.
The motion is so amazing.
Okay, this is it. Now watch the wrong way. See where my hand is? See where the bow is?
Yep.
You don't want that. You see the nice tone that comes out? See how my wrist is going up and down? I'm sorry, I've had little problems and shaky sort of. But that's it. Wrong. Which is very normal to go. So this time you got to do unnormal. So it's just a See my wrist is up here. It's gonna be normal, natural for you to come up here like this. Hold this, and here we are with the bow. And see how this, I can twist that bow whether it's flat or to the side. Also, for louder up here, for softer down here with the bow twisted. Got that?
Yeah, you were showing like this. You were just showing the way. This just the flow of your wrist and arm. That's what was cool. You weren't even playing that time. You just showed me. It was so interesting. It just flows. Yeah.
You see how all my bow is bouncing all around. That's going to happen with you too as a beginner. But as it bounces around, you hear the distortion of this tongue like this. See how that? Because my hand is. That's it. It makes a nice clean tone. If you're not getting that tone, you're not doing the bow right. Okay.
Good.
Makes sense?
Yep.
It's just a matter of doing it. And once upon a time, I played a lot better than I do now, which I don't do at all. But anyway, to be able to play the violin, that is the absolute basics from there. From that point, if you study 1 year and apply that, after that, you can basically do it all your own. Because you have now learned to read the violin language. Just like learning English, once you learn how to read, and you can go ahead and read a million different books. If you run into a word or something you don't understand, you look it up. Because an awful lot of musicians get a basic knowledge, and then after that, they do it pretty much on their own. Some of the very better professionals get with a teacher that presents music that they would not even know about, like some of the great concertos and types of things like this. And I played most of the violin concertos, and I did a concert one time, and I wanted to play a unaccompanied etude. It was a study. There are a whole bunch of studies, and Joe will have probably all of them. And if you went through this Wolfart, then you go to Amasis, you go to Gavini's, you go to Paganini, and then what's his name? I forget his name, but there's another one. Anyway, in that first concert that I wanted to do a etude of his, and it was a number 6. And what it was is just an old English folk song. I'll think about it in a little while. But he said no, because it didn't have an orchestra accompaniment. Then I wanted to do a Ravel Seguin, and I said, well, that's got half an orchestra. He said, no, that's not good either. So then he presented me with a couple. The one was the Saint-Saëns Rondo Capriccioso and the Zigeunerweisen. So the Zigeunerweisen I had done a couple of years before. So in just one of the Flans, that was my teacher's concerts. And it was just old hat. So, but we did it, and it came out halfway decent. And that is one of the only free recordings that are left. And isn't that trouble? I can't think of that name of that number 6 etude. But I will anyway. Okay, Joe, where do you want to go from here? You want to play a little bit or start playing?
Yeah. Okay. Sounds great. Thanks, Dad.
Okay.